Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football. At some point, we kind of have to have the discussion about Jeremiah Smith and potentially being on flip watch, right? We talked about this about a month ago when he took an unofficial visit to Florida. Now he's locked in an official visit to the Florida Gators. And I want to talk a little bit about what the Florida Gators can sell to Jeremiah Smith that Ohio State might not be able to sell. And I'm not saying that I think this flip of his commitment will happen. You look at Ohio State and the proven track record that Ryan Day and Brian Hartline have in terms of developing wide receivers to being top 10 first round NFL draft picks. Like it's the most proven program in the country in terms of developing wide receivers. And for a guy like Jeremiah Smith, the second best player in the class, a lot of people think he's the best player in the 2024 class, truly a generational talent at the wide receiver position. It makes all the sense in the world to go to Ohio State, to get developed by one of the best coaches in the game in Brian Hartline. But the Florida Gators do have some things that they can sell Jeremiah Smith to. Now, before we get into it again, just want to say thank you to you guys. The recruiting really doesn't stop, and you're noticing that until they sign on the dotted line on National Signing Day, like the recruitment process is never really over. It's a blast talking it with you guys. So if you do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. We really do appreciate all the support. Over 5,000 subscribers on the channel. Truly can't thank you guys enough. So if you do enjoy it, lock in. I think it's going to be a busy next couple months on the recruitment trail. I want to get into Jeremiah Smith, and let's talk just early about some of the traction Florida is having with a guy like Jeremiah Smith. And I want to take a look at the official visit weekend of Friday, June 2nd in that weekend, right? Jeremiah Smith originally scheduled his official visit to Florida on June 9th, the following weekend. Changes his official weekend to June 2nd. Why do you think he did that? Look who else is coming. DJ Lagway. And if you asked me who's the number one recruiter for Jeremiah Smith to come to Florida, it is DJ Lagway. They have a phenomenal relationship. We've talked about the pictures they've taken on visits to Gainesville together. When you have a five-star quarterback of the caliber of DJ Lagway, these wide receivers, they want to go play for the top arms in their high school recruiting classes. And DJ Lagway is one of the best. Now, Ohio State has a great one in Aaron Noland as well. That being said, the relationship that DJ Lagway and Jeremiah Smith are creating is really strong. And I think them taking their official visit weekend, or official visit on the same weekend is a very big storyline to kind of follow, right? And you take a look at who else is coming. Adarius Hayes, already locked in a top 50 recruit nationally. Jamari Howard, a guy that is a commit to Michigan State, who Florida's also having a lot of traction on the recruiting trail. Also a potential guy that Florida could flip. This looks like it could be a program-changing 2024 class for Florida. And I think that's the first thing that you can kind of talk about for the Florida Gators and what they could sell Jeremiah Smith is one, like this Florida team has struggled at developing wide receivers. I don't think any Florida fans would argue about that, right? You look at some of the guys, Xavier Henderson being one, he's transferring out. Justin Shorter, a guy that I loved in the 2023 NFL draft, never really came to fruition. Coaching changes, sure. I think inconsistent quarterback play. For as good as Anthony Richardson was, he was an inconsistent passer at Florida. It's been a problem. And what you could kind of sell Jeremiah Smith is one, you can be someone to change that. You can be the star in this recruiting class to kind of change the trajectory of this Florida program. You look at it, only 8 commits, a top 10 class already, but 4 guys in the top 50. Jeremiah Smith would be the best commit in this class. And if you get Jeremiah Smith, you could really sell Jeremiah Smith, DJ Lagway, and some of the other guys who are potentially coming to Florida as the class that can kind of change this program that has such a history, such a rich and strong history, and say, hey, you guys can be the group that really gets Florida in the right direction. Now, the second thing, and I think probably the most important thing that you can sell if you're the Florida Gators is early playing time, right? You look at Ohio State's 2023 class in terms of the wide receiver position, 3 guys in the top 50, Noah Rogers, Cardinal Tate, Brandon Ennis, right? They are all very talented wide receivers. And you know Ohio State also with a guy like Mylan Graham already committed in the 2024 class. This is a very talented wide receiver room. Florida, on the other hand, not as talented. Like I like Aiden Mazzell. I like Eugene Wilson. I think they have some good players coming in that 2023 class. Quite frankly, I don't think any of them are on Jeremiah Smith's level. And so Jeremiah Smith, when you say what you can sell to him, you say, hey, you come in as a true freshman, you're playing early and often. You are going to be the go-to wide receiver in this offense for the 3 years you're at Florida, which Ohio State can't really sell because of how talented that wide receiver room is. And you're seeing Ohio State have guys transfer out of the program because they're good wide receivers. They just can't really get on the field and stay on the field consistently. Another thing that you can maybe sell for Florida, Jeremiah Smith, one of the more active recruits in terms of tweeting, says he wants to run track. The Florida Gators have an excellent track program as well. He's obviously, I think he just won the regionals and the hurdles last weekend. That's another thing that you could certainly sell if you're the Florida Gators, right? If you want to run track, we have a phenomenal track and field program as well down in Gainesville. I'm not saying this is going to be an easy flip, right? Brian Hartline, Ryan Day, the best in the business at doing this. That being said, it does seem like they have some things to sell Jeremiah Smith on if he were to come to Gainesville. And the last thing I would say is Jeremiah Smith committed to Ohio State on December 14th of 2022. So he's been an early commit in this 2024 class. He committed when Dylan Raiola was still locked in the 2024 class for Ohio State as well. 3 days after Jeremiah Smith commits, Dylan Raiola decommits from the Buckeyes. And I'm not saying Jeremiah Smith committed to Ohio State because Dylan Raiola, but you do see that trend where wide receivers are looking around at where they potentially want to play their college ball at and say, I want to be connected at the hip with one of the best arms in the class. So he commits to Ohio State potentially thinking that Dylan Raiola is going to be the quarterback for him, throwing him the football. And you're really kind of optimistic about the targets that you're going to be able to get, the development, the numbers you're going to be able to put up. Dylan Raiola decommits. I wonder if that's in the back of Jeremiah Smith's mind and say, hey, I committed to Ohio State because I thought I had a really good quarterback coming in and throwing me the football. Maybe not so much anymore. And again, that's no knock on Aaron Noland, who is one of the best quarterbacks in the class too, who's committed to Ohio State in the 2024 class. But there are things that are kind of like stockpiling up that kind of push him maybe to Florida a little bit more. This is going to be a really interesting story to follow. We will come back to this when they take their official visit early in June, get a sense of where we are at. But I have a feeling that this commitment this recruitment process for Florida and Jeremiah Smith is not over. Now, you see it plenty. Just because you're verbally committed to a school does not mean you will be playing there in the fall. And so this is something I think a lot of Florida fans should keep an eye on. And for the Ohio State fans, I really am not saying that I think this flip of his commitment will happen, because you look at the success Brian Hartline has had in winning these recruiting battles. And then on top of that, developing these wide receivers into being some of the best receivers taken in the NFL draft. There's no program, there's no coach that's anywhere close in terms of developing talent at the wide receiver position than Brian Hartline and the Ohio State Buckeyes. That being said, there are a couple storylines that I do think are showing that Florida could have some success with Jeremiah Smith. And you take a look at what this Florida class could look like if they land Jeremiah Smith. You're looking at 5 guys in the top 50. You have a phenomenal pairing. We talk about this all the time. If you can have a quarterback one, wide receiver one battery that is one of the best in the country, it makes an offense so much easier to run. And so DJ Lagway paired with Jeremiah Smith, this could be a duo that really gets this Florida Gators program on track. And we've kind of been on record saying Billy Napier not getting enough love for what he can do on the recruiting trail, right? You have that debacle with Jaden Rashada. You take a look at that 2023 class, there's going to be a lot of guys who play early and often for Florida. And we kind of said this. It was a good recruiting class that kind of got overshadowed by a kind of a debacle in terms of NIL with Jaden Rashada. I think that's okay. And the second thing is that these two classes, the 2023 and 2024 class, could be special, because I don't think a lot of Florida fans, especially with not getting a wide receiver in the transfer portal, you're rocking with Graham Mertz probably in 2023. It might be a tough year for Florida this year. And I think a lot of Florida Gator fans would agree on this, but you're going to get a lot of those 2023 kids early playing time. I think the development will be through the roof. So you might have some growing pains in 2023, in 2023. But man, these guys are going to be ready to rock in 2024. And if you can stack a really good 2024 class on top of what they did in 2023, this is how you get this program turned around. And if Billy Napier can land a guy like Jeremiah Smith, and you have DJ Lagway coming in as well, really, really special next couple of years for the Florida Gators if Billy Napier is going to work in Gainesville. I'm very excited. We will continue talking about this as the updates continue to come in. I think it was worth talking about, though, because this is you're talking about a generational talent wide receiver, a position that Florida has really struggled with since the depart of Kadarius Toney, Kyle Pitts. Like, we haven't seen good pass catchers at Florida in a little bit since those guys. And so if they can land DJ Lagway, which they already have committed, they can land Jeremiah Smith. You're looking at in a very explosive offense and a quarterback wide receiver battery that you can really build off and have one of the better offenses, not only in the SEC, but in the country. We're going to continue to monitor this, but did want to hop on and just talk about some of the trends I'm seeing with this Jeremiah Smith recruitment process and how it might not be over for the Florida Gators. Again, y'all enjoy the content. Consider subscribing to the channel. We are not in the normal recording studio. We're on the road, but again, the recruiting process doesn't stop. So again, appreciate you guys for checking us out, being so awesome with the support, and we'll talk to y'all later. Subscribe to the channel if you do enjoy it, and we'll talk to you guys later.